Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
On today's podcast, I'm joined by Jeremy Johnson of Rancho Dos Ninos, east of San Antonio, Texas. Thanks for joining me today, Jeremy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to get to know you a little bit, and then we're kind of going to get into talking about breeding for twist. That's going to be our topic today. But before we jump into that, why don't you just start by telling me a little bit about yourself, your family, and how you got started in Longhorns?
Well, we bought our ranch in 2013, just outside of San Antonio, and I was a UT graduate, so I always loved Longhorns. And when we bought our place, we kind of debated back and forth about what kind of cattle we wanted to breed. My wife and I both grew up around cattle, so we ultimately chose Texas Longhorns, and we have two boys. One is 16 now, and the other is 13. So back in 2013, they were much younger, and they really took a liking to the Longhorns as well. So that's how we got started.
So you mentioned that both your wife and you had cattle growing up. Did either of you have Longhorns?
No, neither of us did. I used to work at my uncle's ranch down in South Texas, deep South Texas in Freer, and he just ran crossbred cattle. And then my wife, her family, they had an operation near Yorktown, Texas, and they were running F1s, Herefords, and Brahmas, making F1s and selling those. So no, neither of us had Longhorn. So it was a totally new experience for us.
So when you landed on that's the type of animals you wanted to have, what contributed to that decision, and how did you kind of go about, doing your research and preparing to raise them?
Well, we chose them for the hardiness of the breed. We chose them for the unique things that they have, the color patterns and the horns, and the size was right for what we liked and for where we are in Texas. But mainly it was for the hardiness and the maternal instincts that they had. And then as we started doing research, we reached out to some breeders. The Ollendorfs and Lockhart was one of our first calls that we made, and BZR Ranch. I'm not sure if BZR is in business anymore, but we contacted them, and they kind of got us on the right path. They were nearby, kind of got us started, and then from there we just kind of started growing and expanding our operation and changing things up as we went along.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So talk me through maybe some of the animals or some of the, things you started with and where your program is at today, how it's changed.
Well, we started with basically we picked out color because we liked certain colors, and that was great. And then as we started figuring out bloodlines and stuff and different horn shapes, well, then we started changing a little bit with what we did. Our first two heifers we got, we gave them to our boys and let them decide what to do with them. So one sold his fairly quickly after a couple of years, and the other one we still have, and she's still breeding and spitting out calves, and he's making money as we speak because he's patient, a little more patient than the other one. Nonetheless, again, we kind of picked out color, and then we started doing more investigating and talking to more breeders, and came to realize that color, while it's great and it's gorgeous to look at, we wanted different horn shapes and stuff, and one breeder in particular, Jimmy Jones, told me one time that that color is the easiest thing to accomplish in Longhorns, and I have kind of stuck with that to this day and realized that he's right. So we started building our program around different horn shapes and different bloodlines that have been a little bit more popular, I guess you could say.
So for those breeders who may not know, you mentioned horn shapes, and we're going to talk a little bit about your focus being on twist and specifically corkscrew twist. Can you just explain a little bit about what horn shape that is? I know it's hard since we're on a podcast, but can you try to maybe let those who might not know what that is?
Well, I like more of a lateral roll, I guess is what you'd call it. When I say corkscrew, I mean literally if you took the horn off and you stuck it in a bottle of wine, it would corkscrew in. That's what I've come in the last 6-7 years. I've come to really turn my focus to. I kind of floundered around a little bit for a while, but then I kind of discovered it and really liked it, and that's kind of what we're focusing on now. But again, you just take the horns off and just think about them going vertically up and down, and you can twist them into the ground and like an auger or a corkscrew, and that's what I like.
So you mentioned early on that you got to pick Jimmy Jones' brain a little bit when you were talking about color. Are there any breeders that you've gone to for advice once you kind of decided that twist was going to be your focus?
Yeah, I've talked a lot to the Bolins. I got really close with them, with Cindy and Brent, and they, the one thing that they told us from the get-go when we first met them and started buying some head from them was again that while lateral horns might be the top sellers out there in a lot of these sales, the iconic looking Longhorn still reigns king, if you will, like the Horseshoe J Journey and the Wolf Coast Shadow Dancer that I owned, and Advancing Moon that I own. That those kind of cattle are still kind of the most notorious in the breed. Dale Hunt, I know, had a lot of influence on the corkscrew twist. There's several people out there that we started talking to, but mostly it was the Bolins and just their take on different horn shapes and such.
So you mentioned a few bloodlines there, specifically Horseshoe J Journey was the first one you mentioned. What are some of the bloodlines then that you're choosing to focus on within your own program?
Well, I bought Wolf Coast Shadow Dancer about 5 or 6 years ago. It's probably longer than that. It might be 7 or 8 years ago now. Time gets away from you sometimes. But we bought her at the first Bolin production sale. We paid up for her. We knew going in that's what we wanted. She was the mother of Pearl Snap BCB. She was the mom of Bandera's Ghost BCB, which is like, I don't know, she's like 95 inches of corkscrew twist. So we bought her, and then we bought a Bandera Czech's daughter by the name of Freckled Bandita BCB. Her mom was a really cool YO twisted cowgirl, twisty horn dam. She was actually, Cindy Bolin used to tell me she was her favorite cow in the pasture, and I believe it. So we bought those cows initially to kind of get us going. With the Shadow Dancer, she was bred when we bought her to Swagger BCB, which he is not known as a corkscrew twist, but he threw a bull for us. She threw a bull for us, the first calf. It just happened to be during COVID, so we named him COVID 20. And so far, the calves that we've gotten out of him, his first crop, have been very, showing a lot of promise in the twist department. We bought a Stockton Burton cow by the name of Advancing Moon at one of their events, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And she is a triple corkscrew twist cow. She's probably mid 90s now. She was low 90s about a year ago. She's probably close to mid 90s. And again, these three were kind of the starting point of what we wanted for bloodlines. And then we've looked at bulls anytime, because we utilize AI fairly regularly. So we look at bulls and look at their maternal lines and see what kind of twists the maternal lines have, and kind of go from there. Lately, I've been liking a bull that's a Stockton Burton bull named Formal Attire. It's a little bit older bull out of Tempter, and so we've utilized him a little in our AI program. And then basically right now we're looking for an outcross bull for our COVID calves that we have on the ground. We have like 6 or 7 out of this first crop of really nice heifers that we're proud of. And we're already thinking about what kind of twist we're going to be able to put on top of them as well.
So I think when folks think about triple twist or corkscrew twist animals, cows come to mind, obviously. But how you've talked a lot about, excuse me, you've talked a lot about bulls. How important is the sire's side of the pedigree when it comes to breeding for twist?
So it's been drilled into my head from the get-go to look really, really hard at the maternal side of the bull. But if you ignore the paternal side of the bull, you're gonna give up something. So I always look at Reckon So as a bull we've used several times, AI via AI, and I look at his dam and what she's been able to do with cut and dried, and I mean she's just an incredible cow in this breed. And she's not a corkscrew twist cow or anything like that, but she's got enough twist that when you mix him with the right bloodlines, you start getting that twist. So yes, you really do have to look at the paternal side as well. But so many people, they look at the cow power behind the bull. It maybe overlook a little bit the bull power on the paternal side of the bull as well. But they're both important, no doubt. But again, my main thing is I really like looking at the maternal side and just seeing what they produce, because it just tends to hold true that the heifers that you get, the babies that you get, tend to look more like the maternal side than they look like the paternal side. Mm-hmm. So that's what we focus on. That's what we look at first before anything else, usually.
Well, let's talk about heifers for a little bit. So on your ranch, what should a heifer's horn profile look like for you to keep her versus cull her?
So while I absolutely 100% love Corkscrew, I'm not going to cull an animal necessarily because they're high horned. Even if they are a little more high horned, you've got to have the patience, because eventually they will twist out. You may not get that corkscrew, but you're going to get a beautiful Texas twist going on. That being said, to cull anything, I'm looking more at the body, as far as culling, than anything else. I'm looking to make sure that that she's structurally sound, that she's just built right. But horn wise, again, I've culled a couple just because of horns, and I probably shouldn't have. And I kind of look back and sometimes think, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have been a little more patient. But with the corkscrew, you really have to be patient. I mean, it takes time. It's a process, and it's not for the faint of heart. And it just, again, you just have to be patient and just watch them and enjoy them, and just take your time.
So when you say that you have to be patient, like how many years are you talking that you're invested in these animals to see how they roll out?
Well, I've actually got one that I'm selling this weekend, who she is actually out of that freckled bandita cow we were talking about earlier. That's mom is a great old school genetic YO triple twist corkscrew girl. She is 3, and we are selling her now, and she's definitely got the corkscrew stuff going on. You can clearly see it now. But her first calf we're going to keep because her first calf is out of COVID. So we stacked those genetics. So we're keeping the calf. But you really need to wait 3, sometimes even 4 years to really start seeing that twist. Again, but you gotta study what you've bred. If you know your genetics, if you know these are some slower growing genetics, then give them a little more time. If it's faster growing genetics, maybe you can pull the trigger a little bit sooner. But I would say on average, you probably need 3.5 years to really kind of get a good idea of what the horns are going to do.
So what did you say that animal's name was you're selling? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Her name is Tuanar Chispa, and she is out of a bull we had named Point Taken, who was actually a Clear Point son. So if you go back and you look at that pedigree, you would see all kinds of twists. But her dam is freckled bandita, and again, she's got 3 stacked paternal or maternal side of corkscrew going back on her. So we figured we would probably get corkscrew eventually with her, and we sure did.
So let's use her as an example. And again, I know it's tough because we're on a podcast. We're not in a pen with an animal able to use video, but just talk to me a little bit about her horn progression. What, when she started to show tips, what did they look like? What was the progression between then and where she's at now? And then, what would be the next steps for the new owner in terms of what her horn should do, if your gut is right about her rolling out with twist.
Well, she started off, the tips were kind of going in the back when she first started getting horns. They were kind of going back. And then she didn't have a huge tip to tip measurement at a year old or anything because of, again, the way they were going back, it doesn't allow for it. So then we started seeing them go forward at about a year. And then you could, if you just studied them, you could watch them, and you could watch them at the base as they were kind of twisting slowly, slowly, slowly. And then they started going down a little bit and twist about a year and a half old. And then, you could just see the progression going from back to out to down and then back up a little bit. And now if you look at her, she's starting that next twist, and the horns are going towards the back again. And her calf is that we've kept that we're replacing her with right now. I mean, her tips are just going straight. They were just going straight back, but they're going down. So they're not exactly like she was. But again, we're going to watch the progression, and my guess is they're going back and down. My guess is the next are going to kind of go a little bit more forward, and then you're going to really start seeing the twist. At probably another 6 to 7 months, I would guess, is when I'll start seeing that. But again, you just have to be patient. That's for sure.
One thing I really enjoy about seeing animals in person with twist is, and I probably won't use the right term for this, but kind of the grain of their horn. I love seeing how it also has like the twist in it versus the more laterally horned animals, just have like the standard rings, I guess. But really twisty horn ones, some of the iconic ones, you can see that in the grain of their horn and see that kind of progression of growth in there. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that too, because we lost Shadow Dancer a couple of years ago, and we have her, have her skull and horns, and I'm actually putting it up. I'm putting her up in the house rather than the ranch house. So I'm putting her in our main house here in San Antonio. I'm getting ready to hang her actually in the Friday, but I was looking at her horns just yesterday and noticing that how the grain, how it how it gets real tight in there, and just kind of studying it, how it gets tight and then it gets loose and then it gets tight and then it's almost like a tree when you cut it down and you look at the stuff. It's pretty cool.
For sure. Yeah, it really is. So how important do you feel that bringing back more twist is for the future of the breed?
Well, I think it's an iconic thing. I think it is the iconic Longhorn look. Is any kind of twist? Any kind of the Texas twist, the corkscrew twist. I just don't. I don't care for the lateral horn look. It just doesn't do much for me. Again, horn shape is a it's an individual choice, but I want to raise Longhorns that look like Longhorns. I want to raise Longhorns that when people drive by, they go, "Wow, look at that!" And I've had that happen with Advancing Moon. I had that happen with Shadow Day. We had somebody just randomly come up to our house literally on Christmas Eve, our ranch house on Christmas Eve, wanting to know if they could take quick pictures because they saw that cow back there. And sure, come on out. And we got her out, and those kids jumped out with their pretty little dresses on and suit, and went over there and took a picture. And I said, well, why did you stop? He said, well, that just looks like Texas to us. That just looks like the Wild West. And it's like, yeah, it does. It certainly does. So I think it's just really important we save that and we keep that going.
So I know you've mentioned quite a few animals here so far, some that you've owned, some that you haven't. If someone is kind of just looking to start their education about breeding for twist, who are some of the most iconic and historic Longhorn cows or, bulls with that maternal side that produce twists that you would want folks to go look at and educate themselves about?
Well, I would start with obviously educating yourself with Jimmy Jones. To me, he's produced the most iconic twist cow in the breed, and that's Horseshoe J Journey. I mean, there's several other Horseshoe J cows, so he's definitely one to talk to. The Bolins, they're while they're not as known for their corkscrew, maybe it's because they keep them so well hidden in their herd. They keep them for a long time, and Cindy keeps them for a long time. But if you look back at the genetics that they've had on their place, you see a lot of the corkscrew stuff going on. There's a handful of breeders. I think New Age cattle. I think Randy Murray has really gotten into the twist. I know he kind of got into the Stockton Burton stuff, so I know what he's breeding for right now, and he's bringing it back. So he's definitely one to talk to as well. He's been around forever, in and out forever. As far as bulls go, Concealed Weapon always comes to mind as someone who's as a bull who's produced that lateral twist. And again, that bull that I was talking about, Randy Murray, has formal attire. Again, he's a little bit older, but he's producing all kinds of twist, corkscrew type twist. Of course, he goes back to Tempter. So the Dickinson Cattle Company, obviously, they've got a lot of that the twist going on. I know they sold Tempter to Stockton Burton, so. If you can get a hold of John Stockton these days, he's probably one of the best ones you could talk to as well. Again, Concealed Weapon. I like to think my bull, COVID. I think in a few years you're gonna see a lot of his calves with the twist going on. I like what I see early on. I mean, the jury's still out, but what I'm seeing early on, I think I might have hit a home run. as far as cows go, again, Journey, Wolf Coast Shadow Dancer is one of the most respected maternal lines in the breed from a futurity standpoint. If you see Pearl Snap BCB, she's his mama. And then I've got Advancing Moon, and I don't tout her a lot just because I don't like to, I don't really want to sell her or anything, but she's really, really iconic looking, and got that triple corkscrew, and she's in the mid-90s and stuff. I mean, those are the cows that come, that come out right offhand. That seem to, if you look at the wide spectrum, that those cows and bulls have produced a lot of that corkscrew twist in modern times anyways.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions.
It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more.
And now, back to the podcast.
What about a few of your favorites in your own pasture that you're excited about? I know you've mentioned COVID and some of your older females, but are there any kind of up and comers that you're really excited about and keeping an eye on?
Yeah, actually there is one that I'm really excited about. Her name is Freckled Darlin', and she is by my partnership bull, Hello Darlin', who happens to be for sale if anyone's looking for a bull. He's out of Reconso, or by Reconso, and he is out of a cow by the name of BL Rio Darlin', that we owned. But her dam is Freckled Darlin' BCB, the same mom of the cow we're selling this weekend. And she's got that really tight twist going on already as well. So I'm every time I look at her, I get more and more excited. She's just a not even 2 yet. She's not even 2 yet. We already have her bred to a bull by the name of Ice Pick that Gerald Dickinson has, whose maternal side is really twisty. So I'm hoping that she keeps up with what she's doing, and gives us that triple twist. And you never know, maybe she'll get us that fourth twist that has always eluded breeders. Breeders have been wanting that forever. So if she gets us that fourth twist, that would be great. But nonetheless, she's really young. She's really well built, and yeah, she's the one I look at. I'm the most excited about. She doesn't necessarily have the most tip to tip at this point, but I know I've got to be patient with her, and I've got to let her do her thing, and it'll come.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like maybe she's kind of part of this next question I'll ask you. We might take 5 years or so for her to, if she gets that fourth twist. But if you think ahead to the next 5 years, how does your program look different? What is your program doing? Where do you hope to be?
Well, again, I want to keep working on this twist. I've been selling some cows that have that twist, and again, the one I'm selling this weekend, and I'm thinking, man, maybe that's the one I should have kept and got more calves out of and stuff. But the reality is, you gotta sell some, and you gotta sell good ones, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing the twist, and as my wife says, twist and shout. So every time I've got something to shout about, I do. And we've got some calves right now on the ground that I think we're going to be able to shout about here in a few years.
And do you think with your boys getting older that they'll continue to be involved in the ranch and the breeding program?
I hope so. The 16-year-old, he's got baseball and sports and now girls and everything. But it was interesting the other day. We always talk about, because he's going to be a junior next year, and we always talk about, okay, well, what's going to be your next step? And you usually get I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player, or this, that, and the other. And he said, Dad, I want to be a rancher. And I said, oh, okay. So let's find something else you can do as well as be a rancher, because it's hard to make a living being a rancher right now. But but yeah, he seems to like it, and he goes out there and helps me. And there for a while, he didn't like it near as much, but now he's starting to kind of come around again, and he really likes being out there and really likes looking at the animals and evaluating them. And then the 13-year-old, he used to, he was the same way when he was little, loved to look at him. But now as he's getting a little older, he's kind of lost interest a little bit, but I think he'll probably come around again pretty soon.
In regards to your website, is there anything special that you do on your website, or maybe you're advertising publicly to kind of showcase that your breeding strategy is focused on twist?
I probably need to do more of it. Again, because it's one of those things that it was when I really started getting in the twist, and I wanted to keep all the animals that I saw that characteristic coming out of, that I wanted to, I haven't advertised as much to get some of these animals out there that I should. So I need to work harder at that. There's no doubt about that. But again, advertising, again, I'm selling a cow this weekend that I think is going to be that 85, 90-inch triple twist corkscrew type cow. So I'm hoping that kind of gets the word out, and people can see that yeah, this is what he's doing there and down in South Texas.
Yeah, sale consignments are an often overlooked but great form of marketing and advertising. That's for sure.
Sure, agree.
Is there any advice that you would give to your fellow breeders, or maybe to new breeders, when it comes to breeding for twist? I know we talked a lot about being patient, but I'm wondering if there's any other advice you would have.
Well, be patient is certainly number one, but look deep into pedigrees. Don't just look at the sires and the dams. Go to their sires and their dams and their sire. And just keep digging around 4, 5, 6 generations deep. And when you find something you like, look at it and say, okay, this and this worked to get this. So let's come back and let's maybe try something similar to that and see if that comes out the way we think it will with this. It's almost an algebraic equation. It's almost you just but look deep. Don't just look 1 to 2 generations deep. Look 4, 5, 6 deep, and then again see what worked, and then come back to it. Not necessarily the same matings, of course, but come back to it and look at the bulls that maybe are out there that are out of that bloodline and stuff, and don't be afraid to. And don't be afraid maybe to even use some old school genetics. There's a lot of old school stuff out there that I think is often overlooked. And don't be afraid to do that. You don't always have to take the greatest bull that's being promoted right now and match him up with a heifer or a cow and hope, and pray. Look at some of the old stuff and look at some of the stuff that might have been around for 8 to 10 years. Some of the bulls out there that have been around a while, and you can really study them and see lots of progeny from the time they're born to the time they're 6, 7 years old, and see if that's something you like. And if it is, go for it.
I feel like that's great advice just in general for any new breeders, whether they're choosing to focus on twist or not.
Yeah, absolutely. We all get stuck, and I'm just as bad. You look at a sale and you think, oh my gosh, look at this bull. All his offspring sold for $4,500, so I'm going to go with that bull. And while that might be a good choice, it might also not be a good choice. And there's a lot of bulls out there that get overlooked, and that some sometimes getting away from the crowd and doing your own thing isn't a bad thing. So yeah, then do your own thing and enjoy it and have fun.
Well, what haven't we covered today that you want to share with our listeners? Is there anything else?
You got to be patient. We've covered that a bunch. Genetics are really important, and I think nutrition is really important too. I think and I'm sorry, I can't even recall who said it, but someone said that you've got to. Oh, it was Justin Hansen before he left the breed and went on to another breed. He was always saying with nutrition is it's kind of the weapon of choice to get these cattle where they want to be. I mean, these are hardy cattle, but if you don't have a good nutrition program, whether it's good grass, good creep feeds, and that sort of thing, a lot of them aren't going to reach their full potential, and so you have to be mindful of that. And while there's certainly that's one of the best attributes of a breed is you can throw them out on some grass that may not be the best grass in the world, and they will do fine. If you pour a little bit of nutrition into them and make sure they have the minerals and doesn't have to be grain, but make sure they have minerals and some supplements and protein and that sort of thing. You'll get the most out of them if you do that.
I know just what you're talking about with Justin Hansen. I was trying to think of it while you're talking. Didn't he always used to say genetics load the gun and nutrition pulls the trigger? Is that how he worded it?
That's it. You got it.
Yes.
That's exactly right. And
yes.
He's right. It does. I found that out. I tried to do, because there are some breeders that's their philosophy is like, hey, that's how I'm going to cull. I'm going to throw these heifers out, and if they can't survive on the grass and they can't thrive on the grass that I've got, then I'm going to cull them. That's great. I think that's wonderful. But I still think sometimes you're leaving some stuff on the table if you're not giving them the best chance you can.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like we covered a lot of information and a lot of helpful information that we haven't necessarily talked about on one of our podcasts before. So thank you so much for that, Jeremy.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.